I raised two small snakes, one green, one white. Every time I go to sleep at night, I feel two identical sensations, cold coils wrapping around my entire body. And then, there are the voices. Today is my turn, one whispers. The moment those words are spoken, a slight tingling starts. Then I'm instantly plunged into a dream of shattered logic, like a drowning man, desperate to grab onto any lifeline. But the last thing I reach for in the dream are two ice-cold feet. You little glutton. You aren't just obedient. You're so loyal it's hard to believe. So greedy, wanting those you like all to yourself. Let's go back a few days. I was putting two white mice from the lab into the small green tank for the little white one to eat. My two snakes, the green and the white, now as thick as a man's arm, draped over the branches, basking lazily under the heat lamp. But they aren't interested in the mice at all. They glance at them once, then look back at me. Then they close their eyes. In the corner, the white mice from the last feeding are still there. The mice aren't breathing anymore, so I check on them. Dead mice, and I discovered that the dead mice found in there all had ruptured gallbladders. That's the thing. It means they literally died of fright. At first, I was worried these two snakes would die without food or water, but after raising them for a while, I saw they were fine, growing even, but I still felt uneasy. Yeah, I still bring them two mice to help them get by, just in case they're hungry. I honestly worry more about those two snakes than I do about myself. They're crucial for me to do a good job. And to graduate, I check the clock. It's almost 6. Damn, I'm going to be late. I've got to move. I wash my hands and grab my backpack. My friend Wade on starts teasing me. What's the big rush? Got a date with some beautiful girl? Red, don't talk nonsense. CJ just wants to thank me for fixing his computer. Fine, I'll stop teasing you. Haha. Just remember to invite me to the wedding feast when you two tie the knot. Wade on kept rambling on about some guy at a bar, asking what's up, over and over. Neither of us noticed the two snakes in the tank opening their cold eyes as I left. I got back to the dorm at 11 and meticulously washed my hands and feet. Their gaze followed my every move, sending a shiver down my spine. They really are cold-blooded. There's zero affection no matter how long I feed them. I've raised them for so long, yet they still look at me like I'm prey. I lay down in bed, but my mind won't stop racing. I can't sleep. That coffee I had with my senior is finally kicking in. One cup is all it takes to keep me wired all night. Suddenly, I feel someone pulling back my bed curtains. I try to move, but my body is completely paralyzed. Then, something cold and slick slides against my skin. A voice hisses in my head. This person smells like other women. Disgusting. I wanted to shout, Jujo, I already washed. I don't smell like anything. My head is spinning as I'm pulled into a haze of intoxicating thoughts. I want to resist, but I can't even find the strength to say no. I struggle to open my eyes, but I fear we've already gone too far. We were kind to her. We didn't let her know her true identity. Then, a voice rings out. From the right, just as cold, but somehow sharper. It's deeper than the voice coming from the left. It seems we're going to take care of Daimao today. The voice on the left has a hint of a smile, as if that thought brings her joy. Instinctively, terror starts to set in. This is just a dream. The most terrifying dream I've had in a lifetime. Two girls are arguing over something, until one of them finally gives in. And then, I feel a sharp sting of pain. The sensation of something being pulled out of me. It feels far too real. This dream is becoming even more incomprehensible. I'm like a drowning man, bobbing in the water, unable to even gasp for air. I can't breathe. Then, the woman lets out a giggle. For a moment, something inside me seems to spark to life. Right in my lymph nodes. This isn't the first time I've had this dream. I reached out my hand. Little Dai, you're being a bad boy. So greedy. That laughter chilled me to the bone. Suddenly, music began to play. The crushing weight and the feeling of suffocation vanished instantly. I jolted awake and realized it was already morning. The night light had faded. Sunlight was stabbing through the curtains. It started to wash away the lingering fear in my heart. It was the alarm. The music from Wade's phone. I'd never been so glad to hear it. I never thought an alarm could sound like a savior from such a vivid nightmare. I looked down at my bed. The sheets were a mess, soaked with sweat. A physical mark of how hard I fought to wake up. My roommate, Wade O'Brien, was already up and moving. He threw open the curtains, wiped his glasses, and turned around. He immediately spotted the two small snakes resting in their tank. Your snakes are weird, he said. I can't believe they won't eat the mice. The two mice were huddled in the corner, terrified. Their tiny red eyes were wide with fear. Yeah, it really is strange. My name is Dane Mao. I'm a biology grad student. I'm in my second year. I found these two snakes while I was out in the mountains collecting rock samples. Not even my supervisor, Yu Hai Fong, knows what they are. She was with me at the time, an adorable junior classmate. She's just 1 year below me. Senior Dane Mao, aren't you worried about your graduation thesis? She asked. She's sweet and adorable, with two tiny dimples that pop out when she smiles. She leaned in close without me noticing. When I turned around, I nearly brushed my lips against her cheek. I flinched and scrambled back, trying to put some distance between us. I tried to catch my breath, but she suddenly got insistent. She just stared at me with that smile. I felt captivated, like I was under a spell. Even my supervisor gave a calm, steady nod. Dane Mao, he said, if you discovered a brand new species, that would be your greatest achievement. Your name would be in the textbooks, right alongside these two little snakes you discovered. Who wouldn't want to make a name for themselves in the world of research? But honestly, my immediate priority was just getting my degree. So I brought them back and started raising them in my dorm room. Luckily, Wade is a biology grad student too, even if we have different supervisors. He understands the way I think. Wade is actually raising some foxes of his own. But because of the species difference, his have to stay locked up in the lab. I'm getting worried. It's been 6 months, and these snakes have basically moved in. They spend every day in a state like hibernation, giving me zero useful data. I only have 1 year left to graduate, and I still have a massive data analysis to finish. You should go find your supervisor, Wade suggested. Professor Wu Yin is the top supervisor at our school, promoted to full professor at a record age. He's young, but his level is high enough to oversee doctoral candidates. He even handled the PhD interviews for the main research center at the University of Mexico. But during our first meeting, he didn't look satisfied with my initial results. Not even close. I nodded to Wade, but I couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Wu Yin has an eccentric, cold, and scholarly personality. He wasn't just dissatisfied with me, he was disappointed in my lack of results. I usually avoid him as much as possible to stay out of his way. But Wade was right, so I geared up to leave. It was time to head to the lab and face my supervisor. But right before I walked out the door, I caught my reflection in the mirror and noticed 2 small marks on my neck. They were tiny, almost invisible, perfectly hidden right under my collar. I checked the other side and found 2 more red dots, only these were even darker. I'm in the lab every single day, yet I hadn't noticed a thing until I moved my collar. My shirt was a bit wrinkled today, or I never would have noticed. The wound doesn't even hurt. I can't even imagine how I got hurt. Then, I suddenly remembered my dream from last night. I snapped my head around toward the tank. I saw the 2 little snakes in the terrarium. I don't know when they woke up. They were staring at me in total silence, not making a sound, except for that faint pain in my neck during the dream. Could it be? An absurd idea started forcing its way into my mind. Those 2 snakes were watching me intently. I swear the corners of the snake's mouth curved into a human-like smile. A smile that felt exceptionally cold. Right then, my phone buzzed. A message from my classmate. Senior, the supervisor wants to see you in Lab 2. Lab 2 is the supervisor's private lab. No one else is ever allowed inside. When I looked back at the terrarium, the snakes were sleeping lazily. Their eyes were closed. Was it all just an illusion? No, I couldn't help but laugh at myself with a touch of irony. They're just snakes with no hands or feet. How could they possibly escape a sealed terrarium? Waydon finished getting ready too, planning to head to the lab to check on his foxes. The West Experimental Building sits in a remote corner of the campus. Wyden Station is on the left, right as you walk through the main doors. The 2 foxes in the cage spotted Waydon and snapped out of their lethargy. They were suddenly wide awake and full of energy. Waydon grabbed a large pot of dog food and poured it into their small bowl. But the yellow fox and the white fox didn't even touch the food. Instead, they crowded together to lick the back of Wyden's hand with their warm, playful tongues. Waydon, how do you get foxes to act like dogs? I'm so jealous. My 2 snakes. Don't react at all. I joked, though I felt a pang of envy. I've already decided I won't abandon them, and I'll take care of them forever. At that moment, both foxes looked up at me. It was as if they understood me, but their eyes lacked the warmth they showed Waydon. Instead, they stared at me with a gaze that was cold and dripping with contempt. Senior, what are you doing over there? The supervisor is waiting for you in here. A crisp voice rang out, pulling my attention away. I turned my head to see a junior student standing in the doorway, clutching a book. She was wearing a short white dress again today. She looked absolutely sweet and adorable. A bright, innocent smile spread across her face. But her eyes were cold, so I quickly said my goodbyes. I left Waydon behind and stepped out into the hallway. The junior and I walked in silence, one behind the other. She kept her head low, lost in her own thoughts. Truth is, I didn't actually know her all that well. We share the same mentor, but she's far more talented than me. She's already published several papers despite her young age. Those results are more than enough to let her graduate early. Professor Lian clearly holds her in very high regard. She usually has much more contact with the mentor than I do. Lately, it seems she and the professor have become an inseparable team. They're currently working together on a brand new research project. She stopped suddenly. I bumped into her, and she looked up at me, asking what was wrong. She just stared in silence, leaving me feeling strangely unsettled. I was completely perplexed, but in the blink of an eye, she snapped back to her usual, cheerful self. Was it just my imagination, or is my day just becoming a disaster? I must be hallucinating from all the coffee I drank today. I didn't sleep at all last night, and I'm definitely feeling it now. It's the nightmares. That's why I'm so distracted, right? I'll turn in early tonight. So, Senior likes obedient little puppies, huh? I froze. It seemed she was the one who overheard us. She heard my whole conversation with Waydon. Yes, they're fluffy and adorable, I said, and they understand people. I felt a sudden spark of joy, but then I felt a pang of frustration thinking about my 2 snakes. Snakes understand people too, you know? Doesn't Senior Daimao know that? They have the same range of emotions we do. Joy, anger, sadness, and happiness. My junior suddenly leaned in close. I instinctively took a step back. I stumbled backward, and I nearly hit the floor. But my junior reached out and caught my arm. She flashed a sweet smile, showing off 2 sharp little teeth. Senior Daimao, be careful. My face turned red. I pulled away and thanked her. What were you 2 talking about? My supervisor's voice echoed from behind us, cold and laced with pure disgust. At that moment, the door to lab number 2 swung open. The supervisor was standing right there. His eyes swept over me coldly, scanning my entire body. I didn't know why, but I was inexplicably afraid of him, especially those eyes, cold as a serpent's. "Thank you," she said. "I was just correcting Senior Daimau's little misunderstanding." The supervisor. He stared me down. "Is what Bai Ningbin says true?" "Supervisor, I didn't mean it like that," I stammered. I just didn't know how to explain that things were getting weird. How could I tell him those two snakes often start devouring each other? That they turn into women and invade my dreams? No one would believe me. "How are they strange?" he asked, his gaze locking onto mine. It felt like he was peeling back my skin and looking right through me. I felt a wave of shame, as if he'd uncovered my most secret, private thoughts. Thoughts that, well, they were already leaning toward pleasure, so things were bound to get strange. Or has Senior discovered something else? I tried to stand my ground, but then Bai Ningbin's breath brushed against my earlobe. It tickled intensely, but I was too paralyzed with embarrassment to move. I was trapped between the supervisor's piercing gaze and her playful smile. "Daimao, it's inevitable that you'll face difficulties during this process. Ningbin is absolutely right. Snakes have feelings too, they just need to be handled the right way. You'll discover them bit by bit. This is going to be very interesting." "Interesting, Ningbin, and I will be right by your side." Seeing my hesitation, the supervisor gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. Suddenly, I felt a wave of shame wash over me. To have the industry's top researcher as my mentor, and a partner with that same level of brilliance. I can't let them down. I remember the interview, the moment I was chosen. My tutor looked at me and said, "Daimao, I'm satisfied. You're the best choice." After clearing things up, the tutor told us everything was fine. He asked Bai Ningbin and me to help him with a specific task. We needed to move a sample. Usually, research samples are bred in the main building, but my tutor has his own private area. This was my first time inside. Laboratory number 2. The massive space was divided into several sections. There was the operations zone, the cultivation zone, just like the other labs, and the feeding area, deep in the innermost part of the room. Square glass containers lined the walls from floor to ceiling. They were filled with all kinds of snakes. It was a spectacular sight. It was spotless and organized, with nothing out of place as far as the eye could see. We didn't actually need to move anything, but the tutor started talking to the professor. I had no choice but to follow his instructions. Bai Ningbin just stood there, spoiled and useless as ever. I was just about to snap at her to help me. Suddenly, the lid in my hand slipped. It crashed onto the floor before I could catch it. Before I could even blink, the snake inside lunged out. It struck fast, sinking its fangs into my hand. I ripped it off me, but the damage was already done. The bite between my thumb and index finger was deep. I could already feel the venom starting to take hold. A chill hit me, and the room spun, but luckily the lab had anti-venom. They hoisted me onto the table as Bai Ningbin stepped forward. She grabbed a syringe and drove the cold needle into my arm. The pain forced an involuntary groan from my lips. I couldn't have stopped it if I tried. "Big brother Daimao, you need to behave," she whispered. "You'll be fine soon, even if the toxin has some side effects." Her soft giggling was the last thing echoing in my ears. My vision distorted, stretching the room into strange shapes. My eyelids grew heavy as her voice faded. Who was calling me? I hit the bed and sank into a dream. It was deep, and in it, a furry dog I couldn't see appeared. It kept nuzzling my neck, making it hard to breathe. "Don't bother me," I muttered, but her voice mocked me, asking if I liked puppies. I reached out blindly and caught someone's hand. I felt the hem of a lab coat before someone pried my grip loose. There was a rustle of fabric, and then something was draped over my face. It was a garment that smelled fresh and clean. It finally blocked out that furry head rubbing against my skin. I don't know how much time passed, but I finally started to wake up. The cold metal beneath me was making me feel uneasy. I stretched out my full 6-foot frame. "Thanks," I muttered. "Really thanks. I appreciate it." The way she giggled made her seem like an innocent child, but she looked at me like I was a specimen waiting to be measured. She saw I was awake, and her eyes curved into a thin smile. "Big brother, your scalp looks normal," she said, and the supervisor didn't stop her. He just kept typing into his computer, barely glancing my way. I had fallen into a deep sleep under the influence of the serum and snake venom. It was all just a dream, but a seed of fear was starting to grow in my heart. My supervisor and Bai Ningbin are hiding something, but I don't have any proof yet. I practically fled from the laboratory. I was in pain, but behind me, Bai Ningbin was still cheerfully telling me to rest. Back in the dorm, I stripped off my clothes and found that there wasn't a single mark on my body. Only those 2 spots remained the same. The faded marks on my left side had turned a piercing, brilliant red. An absurd theory began to form as the blurry images in my mind finally aligned. Then, the bedroom door suddenly swung open. It was Wade on, his face flushed and his expression twisted in pure panic. He only called me back to force me into a corner, following his father's orders to save face. He didn't show himself all night, and no matter how much I asked, he wouldn't answer. I had my own suspicions, so after he shut me out, I started digging. I began searching the computer for information on my supervisor and the research team. I was looking for anything I could find on Bai Ningbin. But after an entire afternoon of searching, I didn't find a single useful lead. Every record I found was filled with nothing but glowing praise for my supervisor, Lu Ruyan. She seemed perfect, yet I could feel two cold gazes burning into my back. Those two snakes in the glass tank had been watching me. They stared at me from the moment I turned on the computer. It was the look of a predator watching its prey. I had a sinking feeling that if they were bigger, they'd swallow me whole. I couldn't tell if my mind was playing tricks or if something else was happening. But one thing was certain. I had to finish my thesis as fast as possible. Wei-Dan was still fast asleep. I had no choice but to head to the cafeteria alone. I ran into my senior, Zheng Xiao, who noticed I looked like a wreck. She asked me what was wrong, her voice full of genuine concern. I used the stress of writing my thesis as a convenient excuse. If I told her the truth, she'd think I'd completely lost my mind. Zheng Xiao is always so kind, telling me not to push myself too hard. She reminded me that health comes first and suggested I bring the snakes to the lab tomorrow. She offered to help me check on them, and I forced a quick smile in return. Won't I be delaying your thesis? I asked, but she said she'd already passed her defense. All her data was already analyzed and ready to go. Her sincere expression made my lingering guilt melt away. She was the perfect woman, but those vivid dreams still left me cold to the bone. My senior reached out and pressed her hand against my forehead. Why do you look so deathly pale again? She asked. Luckily, I wasn't running a fever. She complained that my advisor was pushing me too hard on this project. I was just about to answer her when Bai Jinbin walked up with a tray and asked, Brother Dane Mao, can I sit? Her sudden politeness made it impossible for me to say no. My senior clearly liked her. She saw her as a sweet, harmless genius. She was adorable and harmless, but I still didn't want her sitting with us. I had no reason to stop her, and luckily, she barely spoke to me. Instead, she chatted cheerfully with my senior. Bing Bing, why are you eating so little? My senior asked. Thank you, she replied with a soft smile. She only had some vegetables and a bowl of soup without a main course, and she didn't take a single bite. It was as if she had only used the tray as an excuse to sit with us. The truly delicious food at night isn't something you can show in public, she said, looking at me mischievously. There was a strange, unsettling glint in her eyes. My senior thought she meant a midnight snack, but I knew she was hinting at something else. I quickly claimed I was full and stood up to leave. But Bai Jinbin stopped me. Brother Dane Mao, our advisor is away. It's just us now. If you need anything, come find me. As if I'd ever dare to go near her. I could feel it. Something terrifying was hiding beneath that sweet, innocent mask. Bye, I muttered, making my escape. Back at the dorm, the white snake had been acting strange lately. She spent all her time curled up under the heat lamp. At one point, I actually thought she was dead. I tapped on the glass. She finally opened her eyes, looking annoyed that I disturbed her. Then she drifted back to sleep, while the green snake grew more restless by the day. My own sleep was suffering, too. Every night, I felt like something was suffocating me, but the memory vanished the moment I woke up. My head felt heavy, my thoughts constantly clouded and confused. Even the wound on my neck refused to heal. Was it possible the venom from that first snake was still in my blood? I stayed trapped in that daze, skipping the lab for several days in a row. When I finally checked my phone, I saw a message from CG. She wanted me to bring the snakes to the lab so she could help me. How could I forget? But the white snake seemed to sense my plan. She stared at me with a look that was cold, calculating, and full of spite. When I finally stepped into the lab, the fog in my brain started to lift. CG asked where I'd been, so I lied and said I'd been sick in bed. Thinking back on those last few days, I was sleeping almost around the clock. 10 hours a day wasn't enough. Even when awake, I was completely dazed. Wei Lilan was away on family business, so I had the dorm all to myself. I'd spent way too much time just rotting away in that room. CG has more experience than I do, so she took the two snakes. She laid them out on the table to begin a series of tests. The green snake fought back, its energy resisting her every move. Then she turned her attention to the white snake. CG reached out to grab her. She pinned her down, but the snake's body twisted and writhed. It was thrashing frantically, and those eyes, they looked manic, staring directly at me as she tried to coil up. CG just grabbed her and stretched her out flat. Her movements were quick and clinical as she told me to relax. She tried to comfort me, thinking I was just upset about being too rough. She thought I was just being soft, but I had a thesis defense to worry about. We left both snakes back at the lab. Strangely enough, I didn't have those suffocating nightmares that night. My spirit felt renewed, but the snakes were looking visibly drained. The green snake had even started huddling in the corner, looking like it had lost a massive amount of weight, its skin hanging loose and shriveled. Even then, they still wouldn't touch the mice I gave them. They only reacted when they saw me. A sudden flash of light would appear in their eyes, but that glint was haunting. It was as if they wanted to devour me alive. The next morning, the sound of my phone ringing woke me up. I picked it up and saw the screen was flooded, dozens of missed calls, and a string of messages. I opened the text from CG, my senior. They were sent just moments ago. Dane Mao, the green snake finally ate. Wait, no, that's not the right way to put it. I shouldn't say it ate, it's more like it was consumed. Every single drop of blood from the white mouse has been drained. Sucked dry. You've really discovered an unknown species. The text was followed by a photo of a white mouse. It looked like it had lost every ounce of its vitality. The green snake stared into the camera with bloodshot eyes. It didn't look satisfied after its meal. Instead, it looked even more enraged. but I wasn't happy at all because I kept thinking about the red dots on my neck. I had measured the distance. 8 centimeters, exactly the same distance as the space between those two marks. The bite marks, but I always made sure to lock the door tight. I checked the glass sealant every single day. I closed my eyes for a moment, then opened the other messages. They were from Vainan and my supervisor. Vainan had sent a flood of texts, starting from the middle of the night. They started with, "Big brother, can you come to lab 2? I need help with something." Then, "Big brother, save me. I need you." But the last message had changed. It had become, "Big brother, I can't take it anymore." The timestamp was 10 p.m., right before the senior student sent that message. My supervisor only sent one message, "Answer the phone." I stared at his avatar, a pure, stark white. I didn't reply. Instead, I just headed out. There was no need to check the missed calls. Every single one of them was from Vainan or my supervisor. Suddenly, 2 names flashed in my mind, Xiaoying and Xiaobai. I didn't go looking for Wei Dong. I went straight to lab number 2. I tried the handle. It wouldn't budge. It was locked tight. Since the sun hadn't fully risen yet, the room was draped in dim, heavy shadows. Only the computer screen was glowing. My adrenaline made me overlook one thing. Why hadn't the computer gone into sleep mode all night? I typed my name into the log, searching the system. Fast. A folder popped up. It was labeled Dane Mao. My heart hammered against my ribs. It felt like I was finally about to uncover the truth. I was so focused, I didn't notice someone creeping up behind me. By the time I reacted, it was too late. I was pulled into a tight embrace, arms locked around me from behind. "Senior, I can't live without you." "What are you talking about?" I managed to say. "I was just trying to finish my thesis." I hadn't even had the chance to speak with him. I expected Bai Ningbin, the girl who claimed she was dying, to be okay, but she just leaned into me. Her head hit my shoulder. Her breath was icy, smelling faintly of blood. That smell, it was familiar. It wasn't human. It was the scent of the white mice I used to dissect. I'd asked her about it before, but back then, Bai Ningbin kept her secrets close. She acted nervous and wouldn't tell me. She just said she had a lead. I was actually jealous of her then. Now, I didn't want to know anything. I just wanted to leave. But I couldn't budge. She pressed herself against me. She whispered directly into my ear. "The topic of my thesis is the emotional bond between humans and snakes. Do you think a snake could fall in love with a human? Or a human with a snake? Could a man really lose his heart to a serpent?" I didn't dare move a muscle. This girl was beyond strange. She was dangerous. Beneath that quiet voice, a storm of rage was waiting to break. It could happen at any moment, and it didn't matter what I said. She wasn't letting go. "Senior," she breathed. "Dane Mao, why aren't you saying anything? Don't you feel anything for me? I let you come to me, but you